to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. We begin the satsang with a prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, followed by Muktakatrayam by Sri Nanda Kumarji.
Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarvavangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namasatvikam Shivam. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Ekam aksharam Hridinirantaram Bhasate Swayam Nityate Katham Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yaham Varum Iti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hridi Vishamanasa Chinvata Majjata Pavana Chalanarudha Atmanishto Bhavatvam Deham Mrinmaya Jada Aham Buddhirnatasya Astyatu Naham Tattata Bhavashikti Siddhatma Sadbhava Koham Bhaita Kuto Varadhiya Drishtatmanishtatmanam Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shivaha Vibhati Swayam Soham Spurtikaya Arunachala Shivaha Vibhati Swayam Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We now have the chanting of verses from Upadesha Saram by Ashwini Balaji and Uma Sridhar.
Namo Ramana. Idamaham padabhikyamanvaham ahamilinake pelaya sattaya vigrahendriya pranaditama nahamekasat tajjanam yasat satvabhasika chitvavetara sattaya hichet chittaya yaham ईश जीवयोर्वेषजीविदा सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम् वेषहानत स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनम् स्वात्मरूपत आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्द्वयादात्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरम् किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा अपूर्णचित्सुखम् बन्धमुख्यतीतं परं सुखम् विन्दतीह जीवस्तु दैविक अहमपेतकम् निजविभानकम् महदिदं तपो रमणभाग्यम्. नमो रमण.
Namo Ramana. Now we have the offerings of Ramananjali music by Radha, accompanied by Pallab, and by Pratibha Sundari.
Namo Ramana to all. We opted to take the 25th Tiruvembavai. This Ramana Tiruvembavai is composed by Sri Muruganath Swami, and the music is given by Srimati Sulochana Natarajan and Sri L. Krishnan, and the orchestra is by Appal Raj.
This Tiruvembavai is in the Ragam Saranga and in Adital, in Kandachaputala.
இல்லாதவற்றை இலையினவ கொண்டு பக்கும் உள்ளறிவாண்மை புலம் வேத வேங்கடவன் இல்லாதவற்றை இலையினவ கொண்டு பக்கும் உள்ளறிவாண்மை புலம் வேத வேங்கடவன் கல்லாலென துளமா காதலாமி கேட்ட நல்லார் அகக்கரண நாகாவரிதிருந்த கல்லாலென துளமா காதலாமி கேட்ட நல்லார் அகக்கரண நாகாவரிதிருந்த சொல்லால் அடங்க சோலத்தை ஜோதியேருள் அல்ல அதீத விதய காயத்தாய் வித்தான் சொல்லால் அடங்க சுகோதயத்தை ஜோதியேருள் அல்ல அதீத விதய காயத்தாய் வித்தான் கொல்லார் பரவு மொழு மோன பறவை படிந்தெல்லா நீராடி எழுந்தே தேரோயம் பாவாய் பல்லார் பரவு மொழு மோன பறவை படிந்தெல்லா நீராடி எழுந்தே தேரோயம் பாவாய் சரி நிசத దని పదమ పరి గమరే సా పమ్మ పద్దాని సగరి సని నిరి సని దద సని దప పని దప మమ దప మరి గమరి స స స స ప ప ప మమ దద దప ప పని ని దస பல்லா பரவு மொழு மோன பறவை படிந்தெல்லானே
Please proceed. Fourth verse of Bhagwan's composition, Sri Arunachala Ashtakam. Bhagwan says, Arunachala, you dwell as being and consciousness in all forms, in all religions. Yet people search for God, ignoring you within themselves, like holding a lamp and searching for darkness. If they cannot see you, they are better than blind, who don't know the sun. Forsake Bhagwan praise. O mighty Arunachala, a jewel, stand shine as myself within my heart. हे शक्तिमान अरुणाचल, अपनी ओर न देख अगर खोज रहे हो ईश्वर को, अपनी ओर न देख अगर खोज रहे हो ईश्वर को, लिए हाथ में दीप और ढूंढ रहे हो तुम को, लिए हाथ में दीप और ढूंढ रहे हो तुम को। हे शक्तिमान अरुणाचल, हे शक्तिमान अरुणाचल, चिदानंद ये स्वरूप में हो, अंत काल में सुव्यक्त हो, चिदानंद ये स्वरूप हो, अंत काल में सुव्यक्त हो। सब धर्मों में सब रूपों में सकल निखिल में तुम ही हो, सब धर्मों में सब रूपों में सकल निखिल में तुम ही हो। हे शक्तिमान अरुणाचल, हे शक्तिमान अरुणाचल, तुम्हें रूप में सच्चित के देख नहीं पाते हैं जो, तुम्हें रूप में सतचित के देख नहीं पाते हैं जो, अनभिज्ञ निपट सूरज से अंधे जैसे मानो वो, अनभिज्ञ निपट सूरज से अंधे जैसे मानो वो, अनुपम अरुणाचल तुम हो, अनुपम अरुणाचल तुम हो। हे शक्तिमान अरुणाचल, हे शक्तिमान अरुणाचल, हे शक्तिमान अरुणाचल, हे शक्तिमान अरुणाचल। नमो नमः।
Namo Ramana. The next two offerings of Ramananjali music will be the first one from Savitri Krishnan and Jai Shri Ram Krishnan, and the second one from Revati Shankar.
ದೈವದೊಲುಮೆಯೇ ಫಲಿಸಿ ಬಂದನಿ ದಯಾಮೂರ್ತಿ ರಮಣ, ಕೈವಲ್ಯದ ಸಿರಿ ಕನಸನು ಮನಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಹೊಳೆಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣ, ಹೊಳೆಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣ. ದೈವದೊಲುಮೆಯೇ ಫಲಿಸಿ ಬಂದನಿ ದಯಾಮೂರ್ತಿ ರಮಣ, ಕೈವಲ್ಯದ ಸಿರಿ ಕನಸನು ಮನಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಹೊಳೆಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣ, ಹೊಳೆಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣ. ಮಾಯೆಯ ಚಲುವಿಗೆ ಮರುಳಾಗಿದ್ದೆವು ನಿಜ ಎಂದೇ ಭ್ರಮಿಸಿ, ಜೀವವ ಬಂಧನ ಕಳೆದೆವು ಸುಳ್ಳಿನ ಹೊರಮೆರಗನು ವರಿಸಿ ಮಾಯೆಯ ಚಲುವಿಗೆ ಮರುಳಾಗಿದ್ದೆವು ನಿಜ ಎಂದೇ ಭ್ರಮಿಸಿ ಜೀವವ ಬಂಧನ ಕಳೆದೆವು ಸುಳ್ಳಿನ ಹೊರಮೆರಗನು ವರಿಸಿ ನರಕದ ಬಾಗಿಲನು ಕುತಲೆತ್ತೆವು ಒಳ ಹೋಗಲು ಬಯಸಿ ನರಕದ ಬಾಗಿಲನು ಕುತಲೆತ್ತೆವು ಒಳ ಹೋಗಲು ಬಯಸಿ ಯಾರೋ ನುಡಿದಂತಾಯಿತು ದನಿಯಲಿ ಯಾರೋ ನುಡಿದಂತಾಯಿತು ದನಿಯಲಿ ಪ್ರೀತಿ ಕರುಣೆ ಹರಸಿ ಪ್ರೀತಿ ಕರುಣೆ ಹರಿಸಿ ದೈವದೊಲುಮೆಯೇ ಫಲಿಸಿ ಬಂದನಿ ದಯಾಮೂರ್ತಿ ರಮಣ ಕೈವಲ್ಯದ ಸಿರಿ ಕನಸನು ಮನಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಹೊಳೆಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀಚರಣ ಹೊಳೆಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀಚರಣ ದೈವದೊಲುಮೆಯೇ ಫಲಿಸಿ ಬಂದನಿ ದಯಾಮೂರ್ತಿ ರಮಣ ಯಾರು ಕರೆಯದೆ ಯಾರು ಅರಿಯದೆ ನೇರ ಬಂದ ಒಳಗೆ ಸೂರೆ ಮಾಡಿದನು ಕಣ್ಣ ಕಾಂತಿಯಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ನೇಹ ಸಲಿಗೆ ಯಾರು ಕರೆಯದೆ ಯಾರು ಅರಿಯದೆ ನೇರ ಬಂದ ಒಳಗೆ ಸೂರೆ ಮಾಡಿದನು ಕಣ್ಣ ಕಾಂತಿಯಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ನೇಹ ಸಲಿಗೆ ಭಾವದ ಮಿಲನವೇ ಸಾಕಾಗಿರಲು ಬೇರೆ ಮಾತು ಬೇಕೆ ಭಾವದ ಮಿಲನವೇ ಸಾಕಾಗಿರಲು ಬೇರೆ ಮಾತು ಬೇಕೆ ಸೋತು ಶರಣಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಿಕೆಯಾದೆವು ಸೋತು ಶರಣಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಿಕೆಯಾದೆವು ಸೋತು ಶರಣಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಿಕೆಯಾದೆವು ಅವನ ದಿವ್ಯ ಪದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನ ದಿವ್ಯ ಪದಕ್ಕೆ ದೈವದೊಲುಮೆಯೇ ಫಲಿಸಿ ಬಂದನಿ ದಯಾಮೂರ್ತಿ ರಮಣ ಕೈವಲ್ಯದ ಸಿರಿ ಕನಸನು ಮನಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಹೊಳೆಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀಚರಣ ಹೊಳೆಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀಚರಣ ಹೊಳೆಸಿದ ಶ್ರೀಚರಣ ಓಂ ನಮೋ ಭಗವತೆ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the 21st verse of Saddarshanam. Atmanamiksheta param prapashyet ityagamokteh sulabho na bhavaha natmaiva drishyo yadika katheshe swayam tadanni bhavanam tadiksha. The scriptures declares, see the self. See God. It is not easy to understand these ideas because self is one. It cannot be seen. How can one see God? It is only by becoming food to Him. We have heard of the saying, stepping in someone's footwear. When we are in the position of the self, only we will understand what it is. But then there is the limitation of minus. Only if we lose that, then the self is experienced. The self is always. Since I am present as the ego, I don't see it. The compassionate one, Ramana, gives this to us in many ways. One of the ways is by his glance. He destroys us. I present to you a song written by Sadhom Swami, Kannada translation by R.N. Jayagopal, music by Sri H.K. Narayana. ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ
ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ, ಮಿಗಿಸದೇನು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀನುಂಗಿದೆ. ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ, ಮಿಗಿಸದೇನು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀನುಂಗಿದೆ. ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ, ಏನು ಎಂದು ನಾ ಯೋಚಿಸೋ ಮುನ್ನ, ಏನು ಎಂದು ನಾನು ಯೋಚಿಸೋ ಮುನ್ನ, ಏನು ಮಾಯ ಕವಿತೆನ್ನ ನಾನು ಅರಿಯದೆ. ಏನು ಎಂದು ನಾನು ಯೋಚಿಸೋ ಮುನ್ನ, ಏನು ಮಾಯ ಕವಿತೆನ್ನ ನಾನು ಅರಿಯದೆ. ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ, ಮಿಂಚೋ ಕಾಂತಿ ಭರಿತ ಕಣ್ಣ ನೋಟದೀಟಿ, ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ರಸವ ತಂದು ಒಡಲ ದಾಟಿ. ಮಿಂಚೋ ಕಾಂತಿ ಭರಿತ ಕಣ್ಣ ನೋಟದೀಟಿ, ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ರಸವ ತಂದು ಒಡಲ ದಾಟಿ. ಆಗಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೋ ಹೊಸದು ಶಾಂತಿ, ಆಗಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೋ ಹೊಸದು ಶಾಂತಿ. ಮೌನ ನೋಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂತಹ ಪ್ರೀತಿ, ಮೌನ ನೋಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂತಹ ಪ್ರೀತಿ. ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ, ಹಸುವಿನಂಥ ನೋಟ ದೈವಿಕ ಹುಲಿಯೋ, ಬರಬೇಡಿದವರ ಗರ್ವ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಲಿಯೋ. ಹಸುವಿನಂಥ ನೋಟ ದೈವಿಕ ಹುಲಿಯೋ, ಬರಬೇಡಿ ಬಂದವರ ಗರ್ವ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಲಿಯೋ. ನಿನ್ನ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಅರಿಯದೆ ಬಂದೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಮುಂದೆ, ನಿನ್ನ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಅರಿಯದೆ ಬಂದೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಮುಂದೆ. ಹುಲಿಯ ಹಾಗೆ ಹಾರಿ ಮನವ ಹಿಡಿದು ಕೊಂದೆ, ಹುಲಿಯ ಹಾಗೆ ಹಾರಿ ಮನವ ಹಿಡಿದು ಕೊಂದೆ. ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ, ಮಿಗಿಸದೇನು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀನುಂಗಿದೆ. ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ, ಮಿಗಿಸದೇನು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀನುಂಗಿದೆ. ಏನು ಮೋಡಿಯೋ ರಮಣ ನಿನ್ನ ನೋಟ. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. We now have the reading and the sharing by Sri Nanda Kumarji.
Namo Ramana. In the reading segment, we are commencing the book Fresh Discoveries, Western Seekers on Sri Ramana Maharishi, edited by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We start with Pascaline Mallet. The article starts with an introduction to Pascaline Mallet and her book in probably a magazine in France. The article in that magazine is Action et Pensées, that is action and thoughts. In that article, there is a reference to Pascaline Mallet's book, Turn Inwards. Pascaline Mallet is one of the rare French women who have adventured in India, not in the India of golf courses and polo grounds, nor under the direct and constant protection of a husband or a guru, but alone, in the heat of the country, with no other guide but her faith and her adventurous spirit. The story of some episodes in her travels is well calculated to give other women the wish to follow her example. In a pleasant and colorful style, she tells us with utmost candor what she has seen and understood from Cape Comorin to Kashmir. And she must have had eyes very open and her mind very wide awake, for she has certainly understood India better in less than a year, I think, than numbers of men and women who have passed the greater part of their lives there. Let us congratulate her warmly on having given us this excellent book, but lament at the same time that the publishers of France should have allowed an English firm profit by it first. Doubtless, our compatriots wait for public favor to assure a manuscript of success before they judge its worth, a thing which does them no honor. The writer is commenting on the French publishers not publishing the turn eastwards first and allowing an English firm to publish that. Numerous photographs taken with discernment but not always very well reproduced enhance the pleasure of reading the book. Is it through excess of modesty that Pascaline Mallet has allowed the appearance as frontispiece of such an abominable portrait of herself? Probably the photograph she has selected of herself did not show her in good relief, and the critic or the author of this piece is commenting that probably out of modesty she has selected such a photograph. We go into the article. Turn eastwards, Pascaline Mallet. Leaving Adayar with the intention of returning shortly after the rush of the Congress was over, we were on our way to visit a great Indian saint living in North Arcot, some 12 hours journey from Madras. It must have been a Theosophic Congress in Adayar, Chennai. We knew practically nothing about him, but felt that this was a unique occasion of coming perhaps into contact with an Eastern sage or yogi, some descendant, who knows, of the great rishis of old who trod the sacred soil of India, spreading the spiritual wisdom and expounding the eternal truths. We were full of the spirit of adventure, with a keen sense of interest and appreciation of all we saw and heard. Not that we had put aside altogether the faculty of judgment and discrimination, but that we endeavored so to attune ourselves to the Indian life that we should not let any preconceived ideas or European habits and customs color our perceptions and reactions to unfamiliar surroundings and events. The first thing to remember when traveling in India is that one must be quite indifferent as to how or when one's destination is reached. If times were not different then, information about trains were varying according to the officials. One must trust to luck whether one gets anywhere at the prescribed time. This observation is based on experience in the present instance. Having been wrongly informed at Madras, we missed the junction where we should have changed train in the middle of the night and found ourselves at dawn a few hundred miles out of our way, arriving eventually 10 hours later than was expected. The landscape was the most beautiful we have yet seen. Rice fields alternating with palm tree woods made patches of vivid green as the tender shoots began to pierce the blue mirrors of the water-covered earth, or a deep orange where the crops were ready to be cut. Groups of women in bright-colored saris were engaged in dividing the rice plants, while the men plowed the muddy ground with the aid of meek-eyed cows. Here and there, small villages with thatched roof houses nestled among the banana trees, and herds of goats and lean-looking cattle roamed about in search of scant food. During the heat of the day, the buffaloes were seen lying in some pond or lake with only their heads protruding above the water. Low mountains and big solitary rocks appeared in plain like islands above the surface of the sea, taking the shapes of pagodas, temples, and elephants. It was interesting to note how often the architecture in India seemed to be inspired by nature and how it harmonizes with the very aspect of the country. A temple was seen in the distance with its 4 great gopurams rising above a town situated at the foot of a bare mountain of red granite, and the train finally stopped at the tiny station of Tiruvannamalai. We soon found ourselves sitting, or more exactly, lying in a bandy 2-wheeled bullock carriage, in which people and luggage can be piled up in the narrow space comprised between the wooden bottom and the oval-shaped hood. The driver, squatted on his heels in front, or with amazing equilibrium, stood erect on the shafts, using freely his tongue and whip. Tamil was unknown to us, but at the mere mention of the ashram, he nodded, and off we trotted through the growing dusk, passing along the outskirts of the town by tanks and small temples and wayside shrines. Europeans are seldom seen in such out-of-the-way places, and our arrival created quite a sensation among the people when they caught sight of our western clothes. Suddenly, we turned off the main road and stopped under a giant mango at the entrance to the ashram. A few steps brought us in front of 2 or 3 low buildings hidden behind the trees. We were not expected, but all who come are welcome, whoever they may be, and after a few words of explanation, we were led to the hall where Sri Ramana Maharishi is always to be found. 2 lamps suspended from the ceiling shed their light on the assembled Indians sitting cross-legged on the tiled floor. At one end of the room and immediately facing the door was a low couch or wooden bed where a silent, motionless figure was reclining, lost in deep meditation, oblivious, it would seem, of everybody and everything. An ashram is a place where a certain number of people lived together, grouped around a central figure for the purposes of either spiritual training or social, educational, and political activities. In the present instance, the ashram is of a religious character. We slipped in quietly. After having saluted in the Indian fashion and seated ourselves on the ground among the crowd, I took in slowly the strange, unforgettable scene, my whole attention fixed on that central figure whose calm majesty, serene strength, and perfect poise seemed to fill the whole place with unutterable peace. To look into his eyes, shining like stars, was perhaps for the first time to know the meaning of eternity and to be caught up into a bliss that passed understanding. I'll read that again. To look into his eyes, shining like stars, was perhaps for the first time to know the meaning of eternity and to be caught up into a bliss that passed understanding. Who was this great one? On what rung of ladder of human or superhuman evolution did he stand? Such questions have but little value. When the sun shines, does one need to know why and how it shines? Will the thirsty man hesitate to drink the cool water which is offered to him till he be told whence it comes? Stilling the turbulent mind, even seeking intellectual explanations, I opened my heart to the spiritual life which radiated so intensely in the silence. A few Brahmins now entered, wearing freshly washed dhotis, the sacred thread of their caste visible on their bare chests, and on their foreheads the 3 white horizontal stripes indicating the worshippers of Shiva. They prostrated themselves before the Maharishi and took their seats beside his couch. First one, then the others intoned the sacred mantrams, chanting in Sanskrit the verses of the ancient Vedas. At the end, all stood for the final praise, and I had the impression of being, as it were, surrounded by a sea of fiery power, wielding all present into a great flame rising heavenwards. Then once more all prostrated themselves and resumed their places. Not once did the silent figure turn or move or show any sign of interest in the proceedings. It was as if he had been living in a sphere beyond the limitations of time and space. The trend of my thoughts was broken by the metallic sound of a gong, after which people began to leave the hall. Maharishi, having come out of Samadhi, spoke for the first time and exchanged a few words in Tamil with some of the Swamis. Arrangements for our stay were immediately made, and Mr. Paul Brunton, author of Search in Secret India, who was living in town, very kindly offered us his hospitality, which we gratefully accepted. We were asked to come in to supper and were taught the rudiments of good behavior according to Indian customs. Before entering the dining hall, shoes have to be taken off and hands and feet washed under running water. The guests then sit down cross-legged on the floor all round a long empty room before a freshly cut banana leaf. Brahmins serve rice, dal, vegetables, plantains, curds, etc. Deposit on these natural plates the required amount. The etiquette demands that the left hand shall touch nothing, the right hand alone being used to mix and carry the food to the mouth. All waited till Maharishi had begun before starting their own meal. We found ourselves beside a few Europeans, our host, a Pole, and a young Dutchman who had recently arrived. Our noble but clumsy efforts at eating properly created some amusement, and Maharishi, whom we found possessed a strong sense of humor, smiled kindly at us. Supper passed practically in silence and was over in barely 10 minutes. As soon as it ended, the leaves were taken outside and disposed of in the garden, after which the washing of hands and mouth was duly performed. After our journey and our many experiences, we felt glad to follow our kind host back to town and retire early to rest. Preparations were in full swing for the great annual festival of Maharishi's birthday. It is an occasion for thousands of people from all over the country to get his darshan and receive his blessing, and all who come find food and shelter. A wide flat space in front of the ashram was being made into a vast hall by means of a simple wooden trellis work. The walls consisting of straw mats, which were made of a very effective protection against the hot sun. As we entered, Maharishi was busy writing and reading letters and newspapers. He seemed to take a keen interest in everything that happened in the world. But somehow I had the feeling that all the while he was living in a state where time and space do not exist, neither relative knowledge nor ignorance, above the pair of opposites, in the region of the absolute, at the very heart of the universe. This can hardly be described, much less proved, and only dimly sensed, and even so constituted a never to be forgotten experience. His utter impersonality and supreme detachment did not in the very least exclude an all-embracing compassion, sympathy, and understanding of the many problems and difficulties which were continually being submitted to him by all the very sorrow-stricken people who came to him in the hope of finding comfort and help. This is the great beauty of how the limitless embraces the absolute detachment as well as karuna, and therefore by its very nature of embracing this opposite so totally is beyond the scope of any kind of explanation or proving. Bhagavan's utter detachment which actually was also simultaneously embracing a total karuna, is what she is describing so beautifully. Rich and poor, men and women, and children, Brahmins are outcasts. He looked upon all alike. There are many beautiful and touching stories testifying to his love and compassion for our younger brothers. In his presence, wild animals forget to fight or kill each other and do no harm to man. A cobra used to come into the hall without ever attacking anyone and even stayed peacefully beside its most bitter enemy, the peacock, another inmate of the ashram. Maharishi forbids ill treatment or killing of any living thing, and all unconsciously feel that here they are perfectly safe. The little black striped squirrels run in and out. Birds build their nests under the rafters, and monkeys peep in occasionally to steal some food. One day, the people were complaining to Maharishi about these last visitors and declared that soon, if they were not frightened away, there would be so many and nobody would be able to remain in the ashram. Maharishi then remarked with his usual humor that in that case, the monkeys would have him all to themselves. Maharishi's favorite cow, Lakshmi, is a most beautiful creature with delicate horns and almond-shaped eyes. The love she showed for her master was very touching. As we were sitting in the ashram, we heard a noise outside, and to our amazement, up the steps came Lakshmi, as if it was the most natural thing in the world for a cow to enter a room, and went straight up to the Maharishi's couch. He at once greeted her most affectionately and ordered that she should be given some plantains to eat. Lakshmi, then quite satisfied, turned around and began to make her way through the crowd, heedless of the people seated on the floor. She was eventually guided out amid general laughter. She it is who gives Maharishi a calf each year on his very birthday. Let science offer an explanation if it can. When an animal, inmate of the ashram, is about to die, Maharishi will attend to it in the same manner as he does to a human being, sitting beside it to the end with a hand on its head. He sees the same life in all, although he recognizes differences in the outer forms. His vision of equality is based on the realization of the one behind the many. Twice a day, in the morning and evening before sunset, he goes out, and the evening before sunset, he goes out for a short walk by himself up the sacred mountain of Arunachala, which rises immediately behind the ashram, bearing his only possessions, a stick and a black coconut pot. His tall, well-proportioned figure is seen climbing slowly up the steep rocky path, like some mountain god returning to his heavenly abode. Thousands of people flock to this place pilgrimage, made doubly sacred by the presence of the Maharishi. It is said that Arunachala is older, even geologically, than the Himalayas and belongs to the ancient continent of Lemuria. No trees are to be seen amongst the great boulders of great red granite, only high grass, bushes, and prickly cactus. Towards the evening, the whole mountain seems to be on fire as the last rays of the sun intensify the natural color of the rock. Brown vultures are poised motionless in the clear sky. The call of the goat herds alone breaks the silence, and as far as the eye can reach, the plain dotted with palm groves and innumerable lakes stretches to the distant mountains. A striking characteristic of the ashram consists in all the offerings brought to the Maharishi by various devotees and visitors being immediately shared by all present. Thus, when plantains, oranges, fried pastry rich with pepper and spices, sugarcane or other delicacies are presented, a small part is at once handed back to the donor as prasad. And after Maharishi has taken a minute portion, the rest is equally distributed to all. When a personal gift is offered, which he is unable to share, it is invariably refused, and he gives it back to the person with the injunction to use it with his benediction. Now, this sharing of the prasadam with everyone is the pointer to the sahajasthiti, that one can abide in the self naturally only when it is available to all. If it is any particular person's profession and if it is held with effort, no one can abide in that. Just like air, just like the prasadam distributed in the ashram, the Atman is the property of all. He is available as the very air that is available for all of us to breathe in. That is where the final abidance, the sahajasthiti, the sahaja samadhi is possible, and the resting in that parandhama, the Ramana, is possible for all of us. And Bhagavan has been pointing that out in all the activities of the ashram. Ellarukkum irukkarde enakku irundha ponum. In food, he would say, he should never be given anything special. Whatever is available to all, let that alone be available to me. That makes it clear that only such an attitude, such an understanding will allow us to rest effortlessly in this self. And each and every movement of the Maharishi has been a pointer towards this. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramaya.
Namo Ramana. We now have the sharing of self-inquiry, which also Bhagavan has shared so instinctively with all the awareness, the Sahajanishta which Nandakumarji just spoke about, and symbolized by the sharing in the ashram, symbolized by the sharing in the dining room, and of course available to one and all as the Atma Swarupa through the path of self-inquiry, which again Bhagavan has thrown open to every comer, as it were. We now have had the self-inquiry session by Sri Dilip Sinha.
Namo Ramana. Dhyayet Sharada Chandra Sundaramukam Tamraravindeksham Bhaktabhishtavarabhayapradakaram Kaupinamatrojvalam Svatmanandarasanubhuti vivasham Sarvanavadyangakam Shrimantam Shri Ramaneshwaram Guruvaram Yogasanadhyasitam Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yahamahamiti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hridi Vishamanasa Chinvata Majjatava Pavana Chalanarodha Atmanishto Bhavatvam. We commence today's Atma Vichara session by listening to Bhagavan's Upadeshan. We'll be reading from Guru Vachaka Kovai from the section of experience of the truth. And Bhagavan has blessed us with non-association, asanga, verse number 909. O mind, through the power of your presence, the components of the non-self come together, interact closely and playfully dance. Without getting internally ruffled, see them all as a mere witness through the Gnana experience, the Swarupa that transcends and remains unattached to them. I repeat, O mind, through the power of your presence, the components of the non-self come together, interact closely and playfully dance. Without getting internally ruffled, see them all as a mere witness through the Gnana experience, the Swarupa that transcends and remains unattached to them. Often in the sadhana, we complain about the thoughts unceasingly coming and grasping our attention and dancing forth. However, Bhagavan is asking us here to see it from the Gnana experience. What is the Gnana experience? The self, the awareness that which we are, the presence and the existence consciousness that we are, has never been ruffled by this dance, no matter how many thoughts have come and gone. So Bhagavan is asking us to turn our attention to that Gnana experience, that natural experience which Nanda Kumarji was talking about, which Sharda Akka was talking about, which has been given to all of us without discrimination. That has been given. We have never seen our awareness, our presence being disturbed by innumerable events that has happened in the waking stage. Neither disturbed with what has happened in the dream, nor got lost in the darkness of the sleep. It has been ever same, ever present, ever shining. And Bhagavan is asking us to not to get bewildered by all this dance, but to be witnessing them through the Gnana experience, recognizing that oneself has never been, has never changed, and will never change either. That Gnana experience is transcendental. Here and now, it has already transcended all these coming and going and being, staying things. All this non-self, it has transcended here and now, and it has already remained unattached. How it has remained unattached? It doesn't say that, okay, thought should not come, or thought should go away, or this thought is a good thought, therefore it should stay. It doesn't make any claimant like that. It shines equally, whether there is thought or no thought, or thoughts are passing. It remains shining forever. That true Gnana experience, which is natural to all of us, Bhagavan is asking us to see there that the non-association, asanga, is very natural, very, very natural, effortless rather. It has been blessed and bestowed by the divine grace itself. All we need to do is remain in that state. That Atmanishtha is what Bhagavan is asking us to remain in. That state is what Bhagavan is asking us through this Atmavichara. In Atmavichara, if we ever get moved away from that natural state by association, by attending to a thought, or by paying attention to a thought, Bhagavan has given us the antidote through the form of inquiry, to inquire to whom is this thought? Who is? Then we recognize that the thought is for me. Thereupon, when we inquire who am I, it is a reminder for us to recognize that to get back to our natural existence conscious peace state, which is never rappelled by the rising or movement of the thought. It is an opportunity to turn our attention from the non-self to the self. The immense grace of Bhagavan. For the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We go on to the sharing by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande ji from Bhagavad Gita Sara of Bhagavan Ramana.
Vasudeva Satam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Shantakaram Bhujagashenam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasudrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmi Kantam Kamalanayanam Yogiradhyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavabhayaharam Sarvalokaiganaatham. Namo Ramana to all. We're doing Manana on Bhagavad Gita Sara, the verses chosen by Bhagwan. So in the last satsang, we had done the 23rd verse where Bhagwan had, where Shri Krishna has said, one should destroy the enemy in the form of desire, which is invincible. Basically, desire is the real reason for all the issues. So today we are doing the 24th verse, which is from the chapter 4, verse number 37. I request Sapna to kindly chant the verse, please.
Yes, sir. Atha श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता सारः यथैधांसि समिद्धोऽग्निः भस्मासात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मासात् कुरुते तथा यथैधांसि समिद्धोऽग्निः भस्मासात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मासात् कुरुते तथा. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. O Arjuna, just as a blazing fire reduces the fuel to ashes, in the same way, the fire of knowledge reduces all actions to ashes, renders them ineffective. So the past latent tendencies incite desires in our mind. It results in action in order to fulfill the desire. The actions may be good or bad, as one may resort to crooked and immoral means in order to realize his desire. Good actions like charity results in punya or merit, and in order to enjoy the results of merit, one has to take birth again with all its attendant miseries and sufferings. Same is the case with papa or sin resulting from bad deeds. Thus, all actions result in future births and consequent sufferings. The root cause, desires, are due to the I am the body idea, which is the ego. When once a person realizes the self and dispels once for all his false identification with the body, it is called the absolute knowledge. Thus, on attaining the knowledge, all the actions are rendered sterile so that they will not unable to so they will be unable to result in future births. As per Bhagavan Ramana, karma is posited as past karmas, etc., prarabdha, agami, and sanchita. There must be a kartatva, means doership has to be there, and karta, the doer, for it. Karma, action, cannot be for a body because it is insentient. It's only so long as Dehatma Buddhi, I am the body idea, lasts. After transcending the Dehatma Buddhi, one becomes a Jnani. So a Jnani has no karma, that is his experience. The scriptures say that Jnana is the fire which burns away all the karmas. Sarva is Sarva Karmani, which is Sarva is interpreted in two ways, to include prarabdha and to exclude it. In the first way, if a man with 3 wives dies, it is asked, can 2 of them be widows and third not? All are widows. So it is with prarabdha and again sanchita. When there is no karma, none of them can hold out any longer. From the Jnani's point of view, there is only the self which manifests in such variety. There is no body or karma apart from the self, so that the actions do not affect him. This is in talk number 383. So the basic what's happening, even a spark of fire has a potential to become a major conflagration and burn down a huge heap of combustible material. We too have a heap of karmas attached to each one of us, consisting of the reactions of the sinful and righteous deeds performed by us over infinite lifetimes. If we endeavor to exhaust these karmas by reaping their results, it will take many more lifetimes, and in the meantime, further karmas will accumulate in an endless process. But Sri Krishna assures Arjuna that the knowledge has the power to burn out heap of karmas in this lifetime itself. This is a beautiful thing that we all need to understand, is we can burn out all our karmas in this lifetime itself. That is because knowledge of the soul and its relationship with God leads us to surrender to Him. When we surrender to God, He burns out stockpile of endless lifetimes of karmas and releases us from material bondage. So the verse speaks of the result of wisdom on vasanas. Vasanas means ignorance. There are 2 stages of growth. The first vasana get charred. That this is indicated by Hanuman charring Lanka with his tail. When you gain higher knowledge, the world loses its fascination. You are no longer tempted or lured by worldly attractions. No fresh vasanas are generated. You are the strong enough to withstand the enticements of the world, just as a seed loses its capacity to germinate when it is roasted. The second type of vasana is vasanas get burnt to ashes. You attain realization. Once you wake up, the dream ceases to affect you. The role of an alcoholic has no impact on the actor. It is a state of total objectivity. So the beautiful example is when Sudama went to Krishna on a mission to ask him for help, he took a handful of beaten roasted rice to Krishna. The roasted rice actually signified his last few vasanas. Krishna ate it. Sudama forgot to ask him for help and returned home only to find that his humble hut had transformed into a magnificent mansion. When you develop the attitude of giving and divest your personality of vasanas, prosperity is showered on you. So that's one thing. So actually, Bhagavan says this beautifully, is when you give something to somebody else, actually you're giving to yourself. You're not giving to somebody else, because actually there's nobody else, but there's only the self. So anything that you do, actually you're doing for yourself. So imagine if we go through our lives and we realize this principle, that everything that we're doing for ourselves, then you neither need it nor are you dependent on it. Sudama walked away from it all to gain realization. So this is an important aspect that we need to understand in our lives. The fire of knowledge burns all unwelcome experiences, leaves no trauma behind. You become stable, your pain threshold increases, stress gradually decreases. Just as wood in an incredible combination of fuel and fire rolled into one, the human being is an impossible amalgam of spirit and matter, knowledge and ignorance. So we're just all of it bundled together. So important thing we really need to understand is we are, when we do self-inquiry or we surrender, there will be a lot of because of the vasanas, you will get different types of thoughts. Some may be very good thoughts, some may be very bad thought. It's like the example that is given when the forest is on fire. When the forest is on fire, all the animals rush out of the forest. The birds will fly out, the animals will fly out, the beautiful things also, butterflies will also fly out, and the dangerous animals also will fly out. So everything will fly out. So when they fly out, then the forest is left with no animals. So that is what is being said here by Shri Krishna, is that if you get to the self, if you are trying to understand who you really are, then what happens? All these karmas that we are talking about, see, the three things that Bhagavan has spoken about is the Sanchita Karma, the Prarabdha Karma, and the Agami Karma. Okay, Sanchita is basically accumulated karmas of the past. So it basically shows the character of the man, his tendencies and aptitudes, capacities, inclinations, and desires. So if you see a person with certain tendencies, you will know that his Sanchita is accumulated. Prarabdha is that portion of the karma which is responsible for the present body. So Bhagavan, when he says tells his mother, based on Prarabdha, whatever is to happen will happen, actually Prarabdha is part of the Sanchita karma. Okay, so Prarabdha is that part of the karma which is responsible for the present body. Okay, and the third part is that the Agami Karma. Agami Karma is the one that is the future. Okay, now whatever we are trying to do now, it'll actually, it's called Vartamana also, where all the karmas you're doing now will have an effect in the future. So these three karmas, Bhagavan says, these three karmas are like huge piles. They are like, we don't even realize how we see only the tip of the iceberg. In the waking and dream and deep sleep, we see only very little of it. But the important thing is it's like an iceberg. When you only see the tip of the iceberg, but below there, the water there's huge amount of ice. So it's like that. But the beauty about this is, if you get self-knowledge, all this gets burnt out. And initially you won't get any additional Agami Karma, because you will not have anything, because if you truly stay in the now and have no ichhas and do Nishkama Karma and all that, then you won't get any Agami Karma. But then slowly, as you get to the self, then both the Sanchita as well as the Prarabdha gets wiped off. So if it gets wiped off, then you will get out of the cycle of Janma and Marana, and that is the purpose of life, is to understand who you are. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Jai Shri Krishna.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang. with an offering from Dr. Kalarani Rangaswamy. Today she will be commencing a new series of sharings. She had completed her sharings on Sadhvam Swami's Dhyana Patu, the song on how to do meditation and self-inquiry. Now she will be sharing with us insights into Bhagavan's translation of Devi Kalottaram, which is also called Jnana Vichara Padalam.
ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீ ரமணாய. அருணாச்சலம் என அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சலம். Namo Ramana to all. I am very happy to say that we have learned Dhyana Patu completely as said by Dr. Sharada. But learning is not a great thing. We have to practice what we have learned. When we start practicing what we have learned, we will be unlearning everything. That's what Bhagavan said. I'm sure, without doubt, Bhagavan is blessing us to practice it. Why I am telling this, Dr. Sharada has asked me to take up Devi Kalotra Jnana Chara Vichara Padalam. Even in that, we are going to learn the same. Maybe in different expression, that's all. Then, what is the purpose of meditating on various grandams like this? Our mind is full of vasanas and it is tempted to run behind those vasanas only. To focus those running minds towards the Nija Swarupa, it becomes essential to do manana on such great grandams repeatedly. So, as suggested by Dr. Sharada, I am taking up this Jnana Vichara Padalam. It is said, Vedic rituals are sparkles of Jnana which shows the path to realize God. They speak about Advaita. One of those rituals is Devi Kalotra Jnana Kanda. When Bhagavan was in Virupaksha cave in the early days, a devotee came with a palm leaves which contained the script of Grandakshara and showed it to Bhagavan. Bhagavan was surprised to see both Jnana Vichara Padalam and Anma Satsangh Padalam. The first one was blessed and taught by Parameshwaran to Parvati Devi, and the second one by Parameshwaran to Guha. Bhagavan was surprised to see them because it speaks about the experience that he already had. So he wrote them in a small notebook in his own beautiful handwriting. How Bhagavan translated this Devi Kalotra, which was in Sanskrit, to Tamil is a very interesting incident. A person called Kumarasamy Raja from Tanjore once decided to collect Advaita texts from all over Tamil Nadu. He entrusted the work to his friend Yajnarama Dikshatar. So he went to different places for collecting them. He came to Bhagavan for darshan and also told him about his mission. Long before, once Sri Ramalingam, son of Arunachaleshwara temple priest, gave Bhagavan some text regarding Advaita, which he got from his relative's house in Virudhachalam. That was also written in palm leaves. When Bhagavan heard about Dikshadar's mission, he was reminded of those texts given to him by Sri Ramalingam. When Bhagavan told Dikshadar about it, he went and brought that text or grandam. So he started taking down some parts out of it. Thinking, why should we be idle? Bhagavan also started writing one of the Padalam. But Bhagavan actually lost it, which he wrote on that day. Later on, when he started writing in the meter called Venba, there is a meter of writing the poem in Venba. Without any effort, this Devi Kalotra slokam started coming into his memory one by one. And that is how the Tamil translation came out as this Grandam without seeing the original, which was in Sanskrit. Bhagavan has given us this beautiful translation of this great work, Devi Kalotram. One Venba for one sloka. Normally, when Bhagavan writes something, there will be someone behind that. Someone would have induced him or requested him to write it. But the Jnana Vichara Padalam is concerned, as far as this is concerned, he himself, without anyone asking him, he translated it. And this great Upadesa of Shiva, which was given to Devi Parvati. From this itself, we can understand the glory of this Jnana Vichara Padalam. Today, I am going to take up the Mangalam Venba. Mangala Venba, the first one. It's written, Devan Tiruvayal Devi Sevi Puhattum. Shiva, with his divine tongue, said this to Parvati Devi. In Tamil, Bhagavan has translated it as the word Puhattum. When we say something is said, it is very casual. We may or may not listen to it with great attention. We may listen in one ear and let it go in the other ear. This may happen. But the word Puhattum is Shiva took the Upadesam into the heart of Parvati Devi. It was such an effective one, so that she cannot turn her attention here and there. I really cannot forget my first class, which I took for the final year MSc student in Madurai Kamaraj University. I'll tell you, in the middle of the class, we could hear the sound of dole, peepee and all at a distance. Some function was going on. It was a bit disturbing. I asked my students in the class, is the sound disturbing you? One of the boys stood up and very smartly said, Madam, you can carry on. We will not be affected either by the outside disturbance or by the inside disturbance. I was really shocked. It was my first day lecture, but since I was in Ramana way, I did not get angry at all. I thought and realized I have to be more effective in teaching them. I must ensure that what all I say should reach their heart, should reach the heart of my student. That is Puhattudal. So, Bhagavan says, Devan Tiruvayal Devi Sevi Puhattum. Devi Kalotra Ter Jnanam Ma Vilaivam. The person who is practicing what is said in this Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam will experience the greatest outcome, Ma Vilaivam. It's a great fruit that he is going to get. When a farmer gets good yield, we will say he got a very good yield. If he gets much more than what is expected, it is said the yield is extraordinary. Param. Likewise, the sadhakas of this Vichara Padalam is getting extraordinary fruit. And what fruit he is getting? What is the fruit that is going to get out of it? It is the fruit which is being enjoyed by the Devas. It is like the fruit, like Amarta. But how? How he is going to get? Arul Advaita Monakari Ahame Mun. Arul Advaita Monakari Ahame Mun. This is the next stanza. Without making any discrimination, meditate on the being which is witnessing from inside. Which is witnessing from inside. The word Kari means both Sachi, that is witness, and also elephant, which is embodiment of Lord Krishna. It has two meanings. So meditate on Ganesha, who who is residing inside you as we are witness, as a witness, or meditate on the being which is shining as the witness, as be there, and be there as itself. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.
We continue the service with an offering from Sri Ujjwal Jagadish.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Ramanena sanatamidam bhuvanam. Ramanena sanatamidam bhuvanam. Ramanena sanatamidam bhuvanam. Ramanena sanatamidam bhuvanam. Paninayaka Varnya Gunauga Breta Vanita Priya Satyahita Vanata Paninayaka Varnya Gunauga Breta Vanita Priya Satyahita Vanata Adishesha Stuti Sabhalla ಗುಣಗಳ ಮಹಿಮೆಯು ಆದಿಶೇಷ ಸ್ತುತಿಸಬಲ್ಲ ಗುಣಗಳ ಮಹಿಮೆಯು ನುಡಿವನು ಪ್ರಿಯ ಸತ್ಯ ಹಿತವಚನವನು ನುಡಿವನು ಪ್ರಿಯ ಸತ್ಯ ಹಿತವಚನವನು. Ganapati Muni, in this 7th verse of Ramana Chatvarimshat, sings that the glory of Ramana is vast. We see that where the devotees who came to Bhagavan's Sannidhi, every movement of Ramana, every thought of Ramana, every speech of Ramana has touched them and has transformed them. In one of the miracles that was read in one of the Satsangh, Bhagavan casually, he just pulled his left hand like this, one of the fingers in his left hand, and people would have thought it's some casual movement which Ramana would have done, but the devotee for whom it was done, he realized the greatness, the glory of that little movement. He understood that he had this excruciating pain in his left hand. But Ramana, by doing that small movement, had freed him from that pain. And Kitty Osborne was sharing in the online global Ramana Jayanti celebration, where he said, where as a little girl, she had got a present of this origami book, and she was trying out all the foldings, and there was this one peculiar folding that she was not able to do. So she was trying it on and on, but she was not getting the proper folding. So she thought, let me go to the hall of Ramana. And she went to the hall of Ramana with her origami book and the piece of paper that she was trying, and she tried it in the presence of Ramana, and to her surprise, she got the folding right, and she got the proper design of that origami, and she stood up and she told, thank you, Bhagavan, and she moved out of the hall. We see that how these small, beautiful things happened in the presence of Ramana. This was in the presence of Ramana. But imagine there was this couple from Peru who came with great difficulty to see Ramana, and Ramana told, you don't have to take all these trouble at all. And they were very dejected. We have come with so much of difficulty, and Ramana is telling, you didn't have to come here. And Ramana replied, after their lunch, after they had taken rest and they had come to meet Ramana again in the afternoon, Ramana explained to them how they both used to sit in the beach in Peru, and how there was this beautiful coconut tree which was bending, and there was these benches between the coconut trees where they used to sit and discuss about the teachings of Ramana and the life of Ramana. And they were surprised how the Peru is such a small place which is not even seen in the globe, that Ramana knew. They knew that Ramana's presence was there in Peru too. So such is the glory of Ramana. Kabir sings in one of his doha, to sing the glory of a guru is impossible. Even if you make the whole earth as the paper and all the mountains as the pen and all the water in the 7 seas as the ink, still you cannot completely write the glory of the Guru. And Ganapati Muni, in the same, sharing this same emotion, he says, only we normal people who have one mouth cannot describe the glory of Ramana, the Adi Shesha, the snake bed of Vishnu. He who has 1,000 mouths, he alone can describe the glory of our Sadguru Ramana. Ganapati Muni says, but when we wonder, do we require 1,000 mouths to sing the glory of Bhagavan Ramana? Bhagavan Ramana in Upadesha says, what is the true singing of the glory? He says, Uttamastava Tuchamandata Chittajam Japa Dhyanamuttamam. He says, instead of singing the praise, singing the glory of the divine loudly, it is better to do the Namapa with soft voice. And better than that is Dhyana, to abide as the self and pay attention to the self and hold on to the self. That is the best way of singing the glory of the divine, singing the glory of the Guru, who is the self. And we see that Adi Shesha, although he has 1,000 mouths, he is not making any sound. He is not singing any glory from his mouth. He is ever abiding as the bed, as the basis of Vishnu, who is the self. He is abiding in the self and meditating still as the bed of Bhagavan Vishnu, who is the self. And we also know that he Adi Shesha was the one who came down to earth as Patanjali Maharishi and did penance to see the beautiful dance of Nataraja. And on the Ardra Darshana day, the day when Ramana was born, on that day, the Shiva appeared and showed his beautiful dance of Thandava dance, the Ananda Thandava, that was witnessed by Patanjali and other sages. And this Patanjali, who is Adi Shesha, he who had understood this big picture, he had understood that every movement that we see in this whole universe is the dance of Nataraja. And this dance of Nataraja includes us and it transcends us. And the best way to sing the glory of this dance of Nataraja is to abide ourselves as that Nataraja Tattva, because we are not separate from that Nataraja. This Patanjali, who was Adi Shesha, he alone can sing the glory of Bhagavan Ramana and sing the glory of the Sadguru, who is everything and who is ourself. And the best way to sing the glory is to abide in the self, says Bhagavan Ramana. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. We are meditating on Bhagavan's Ashtottara Namas, the litany of 108 names on Bhagavan by Vishwanatha Swami. And he is describing to us the glory of Bhagavan's birth, the story of Bhagavan's birth. We looked at how Bhagavan was born as a great light, the Mahaujasa, and how he is the undivided consciousness, the Akhanda Samvidakara, which was born. And Vishwanatha Swami goes on to say that he is born for a purpose. Karanodbhavaha. He is born for a purpose. And in this, the month of Margazhi, in which Bhagavan was born, we have been blessed to meditate upon the birth of Bhagavan. It happened on the 30th of December, 1879. And we are very close physically to that date as well. And recently, the Punarvasu, the star Punarvasu, on which every year the Ramana Jayanti is celebrated, that date also was celebrated across the world through a magnificent online 24-hour celebration. So this 24-hour celebration brought home to us more than ever the truth of this Nama, which Vishwanatha Swami has given to Bhagavan. He calls him the Karanodbhava and he calls him the Jagat Hitavatara. What is the reason, what is the purpose for which Bhagavan has been born? He has been born for the sake of the welfare of the entire universe. Hita, that is the auspiciousness, the good of the entire universe. And what is the real good? The real good is only the self. Because all other things are dual in nature, divided in nature. They may be good for a while, or they may be good for a few people. They may be good for us today, not good for us tomorrow. So there is nothing which is an absolutely good thing in this world. There is a conversation which B.V. Narasimha Swami has with Bhagavan, wherein Bhagavan points out to him what is the real source of happiness. B.V. Narasimha Swami says, how do you say happiness is natural, it is inherent? When I have something sweet and tasty, it is very nice, it brings me happiness. So Bhagavan says, okay, all that is fine, but if you offer a sweet to somebody who has just suffered, in those days there used to be in diabetes, something called a carbuncle would appear, which is a very painful, huge boil and had to be operated and removed. So if sugar was uncontrolled, this would happen. And Bhagavan said, if somebody has just got operated for a carbuncle and you offer them this sweet, would they find it to be a source of happiness? Then B.V. Narasimha Swami, being a lawyer, he said, no, Bhagavan, but if somebody is healthy, they will be able to enjoy the sweet. Then Bhagavan asked, what if somebody has just eaten his fill, say in a marriage feast, to such an extent that, he can just manage to have the last morsel. And immediately after that, if you offer him these sweets, would he be happy? He may be even wanting to vomit because he has eaten too much. So he will not be wanting to have a sweet. He will not enjoy it. So it is not a common aspect or a quality of any experience to be able to give us joy. It is our own life also. We see that one thing, one day we are in a good mood, the same thing will make us happy, the same thing will make us unhappy another day. So what is the real source of good for all is only the self. So Bhagavan, he has come amidst us, Jagat Hita Avataraha. The word avatara means come down. Normally it is used for the descent of the divine into a human form. We call it a descent because, in a sense, that Bhagavan comes down to our own level of existence. And we will find that Bhagavan's teachings are like that. From whichever standpoint we approach him, from wherever we are, we can approach him. And he is available to us at that point, Because Bhagavan is everywhere. And also because he has come down to our level of understanding to explain to us what the truth is. How does he explain this to us? He explains it to us without speaking, by his life. Innumerable instances for 54 years after his enlightenment as a boy of 16. The very enactment of that encounter with death as the boy of 16. And even before that, right from his childhood, we find innumerable instances. Every moment of Bhagavan's life points towards the highest good. It shows us the path of surrender and the path of self-inquiry and self-abidance. And it shows us the glory of self-abidance and the glory of surrender. Because Bhagavan was totally surrendered to Arunachala. Everything is by Arunachala's bidding. Everything belongs to Arunachala. It belongs to my father. Even the smallest gram, a pulse or a grain of rice, if it is fallen on the ground, Bhagavan would pick it up, cleanly wipe it in his towel and put it back into its container, saying this is Arunachala's property. Everything. So he teaches us the beauty and the glory of surrender, the bliss of that state. Because Bhagavan was in that state, unaffected by anything that happened to the body, unaffected by where he was, what was happening around him. He was always in that bliss. And he pointed out to every comer. He did not make any demarcations whatsoever. He did not say that this teaching, this state is available only to X, Y, Z. And to actually bring this point, highlight this to all of us, there are samadhis for Jackie the dog, Valli the deer, a crow, and of course the beloved cow Lakshmi, about whom we heard today in the reading from Nandakumarji, the lovely description, the homely description by Pascaline Mallet. So what did he teach? He taught Jackie the same way as he teaches us, because he is Jagat Hitavatara. There was an instance when Jackie was sitting, Bhagavan was sitting in front of the well, and Jackie was sitting. Jackie would always sit and meditate in front of Bhagavan, often looking at Bhagavan, and probably sometimes closing his eyes as well. And there was the barking of some stray dogs, which distracted Jackie, and he started growling, and he was about to bark and get up. And Bhagavan said, Jackie, you close your eyes and turn within. Why do you allow this to disturb you? What he tells us, Drishya varitam chittam atmanaha chitva darshanam tattva darshanam. Take your attention away from all that you see, all perception, and turn it back to the self. The same teaching he gave to Jackie. Say, you close your eyes, turn your attention within. And the devotees who were gathered there, they say, Jackie immediately followed. He closed his eyes. He turned his attention within. Or it may be to a little squirrel. In a different way, Bhagavan teaches. When the squirrel bit his finger because he did not give the cashew nut at the time when the squirrel wanted. The squirrel was impatient. And Bhagavan said, put the nuts on the windowsill and said, you can take them. They are yours. I'm not going to give it to you. He did not think this is a squirrel. It won't understand. It's a little creature. It's a baby. No. He gave it the lesson of surrender, of patience, of waiting. And when he does that, how immediately the impact of it, the squirrel also understood. The squirrel never took the nuts on the windowsill. The squirrel went up to Bhagavan repeatedly, climbing on him, creeping up to him, day after day, until Bhagavan gave the nuts from his own hand. And all through that period, Bhagavan was saying, see, that little fellow, he's coming. He's creeping up to me to say sorry. Or it may be the monkeys on the hill. It is said that the monkeys would sit silent in front of Bhagavan. And if one monkey ever got disturbed, and Bhagavan would say, enna rajyam kolla poradhu? Which kingdom is getting lost? It's such a statement, And we can ask ourselves, whenever the mind wanders, why? What kingdom are you going to conquer by the wandering of the mind? When the greatest good, the hita for yourself and the entire universe just lies within your heart, beckoning, asking you to come back. Here I am. It is declaring. And this great treasure is opened out to everyone. As Sadhu Om Swami says, Akhila uirum sugamadayave arivai ariyum vadiyai perave. It is for the entire universe to experience bliss, to understand that which understands, that the hill of knowledge has come to us in the form of Bhagavan Ramana. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Today's satsang will be concluded first with the chanting of verses from Aksharamanamale by Radha and Vallabh, and then the Ashtotra Puja to Bhagavan at Sri Subramaniam's altar. The chanting will be done by Sri Vaibhav and Prarthana, and this latter half by Ashwini and Uma. The Aarti song will be sung by Revati Shankar.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. தேடாதுற்றன திருவருணிதியகத்தியக்கம் தீர்த்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. தைரியமோடு முன்மெய்யாக நாடயம் தட்டழிந்தேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. தொட்டருள் கைமை கட்டிடாய நிதிய நஷ்டமாவேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. தோடமில் நீயாக தோடொன்றி என்றும் சந்தோடம் ஒன்றிட அருள் அருணாச்சலா. நகைக்கிடவில்லை நின் நாடிய என்னை அருணகிட்டு பாணி அருணாச்சலா. நாடிலை நாடிட நானாயொன்றினி சாணுவனின்றனை அருணாச்சலா. நின்னடி எரித்தென்னை நீராக்கிடும் நின்னருள் மழை பொழி அருணாச்சலா. நீரானர பொலி நிதங்களி மயமா நின்றிட நிலை அருள் அருணாச்சலா. நுண்ணுரு உன்னையான் விண்ணுரு நன்னிலை எண்ணலையிரும் அருணாச்சலா. நூலறிவறியா பேதையன் என்றன் மாலறி வருத்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. நெக்கு நெக்குருகியான் புக்கிட உன்னை புகனக்கனாயின்றனை அருணாச்சலா. நேசமில் என்ன குன்னாசையை காட்டி நீ மோசம் செய்யாத அருள் அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி. அக்ஷரமண மாலை வாழி.
नमो रमण. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितम् श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावली अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योमि मात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेन महोंसेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ गुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः। ॐ महौजसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगद्दितावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लप्तविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपरान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसम्रम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्द्रशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ शूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूडिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उदीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निधाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दया ईश्वराय नमः। ॐ श्री शोणाचल हृद्भूत स्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्द परिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मा रामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपस्ते नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि दर्शनसुखमङ्गलमुख सकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्गिये। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परम महर्षि। ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ. ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ. ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ. ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಗಿಯೇ. नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
Hey, Namo Ramana everyone.